we're going over lesson 2.8, programs with multiple code files for learnc++.com. So here's the web page and here's the editor, and we will go through it together. Okay. Adding files to your project. As programs get larger, it is common to split them into multiple files for organizational or reusability purposes. One advantage of working with an IDE is that they make working with multiple files much easier. You already know how to create and compile single file projects. Adding new files to existing projects is very easy. Okay. We'll see about that. Best practice. When you add new code files to your project, give them a .cpp extension. Isn't that what we were already doing? Visual Studio, Session Explorer, add new item. Oh, okay. GCC. From the command line, you can create an additional file yourself. Use your editor. For example, okay. You just include all of them in the command, in the compile command. Same thing with VS Code looks like. Okay, so let's do a little maybe like right. Okay. Going to the example. So we take a look at a single file program that would compile. This does not compile, so and this wouldn't compile because we have we referenced this before it's defined. Yeah, so when it reaches add on line 5, it doesn't know what add is because we haven't defined add. So either reorder the functions or use a for declaration. Yep, that makes sense. So to make this into a multi-file program, you use add cpp, and then you define the add function in add cpp, and then So I was going to think that this would compile if you include them together. So I'm curious, is that actually what's going to happen? Do 2, 8. Okay, that's expected. So then if you really do G++ 2.8 main.cpp 2.8 add.cpp. So it's not declared in this scope. Okay, so I wonder if you have the definition in this file and then you can write, can you do this? So it would be just add, you write the prototype like that. You do that, and then try the same thing again. Okay, so it does compile that time. So you still need to declare it in what would be the right phrase for it. Okay, so you need to have like a declaration of it in the scope, I guess. But the definition can be anywhere as long as you have that declaration, which is, that's fine. And I assume the reason, this is probably where you get into header files, right? Because you don't want to have to write the prototypes for every function you're going to use within that program. So that's probably when you would get into the use of header files. So then, maybe you could have something like to a add.h maybe, and then do you need to, yeah, it's just a, and then you would go to main. And if it's, yeah, that one, right? Wait, but then I didn't include the header file, but it still compiles. No, wait, so why did that still compile? I didn't include, wait, so that's so weird. Okay, well, no, because if you include, isn't it kind of just pasting text? So if the header just includes the prototype, you include it, it just pastes the text in there basically. So you would, it kind of functions the same way as if you just written the prototype directly in there. But so that makes sense. So yeah, it sees that you have, so okay, let's say that we did this, right? Let's do, so if we take out the, so this is going to fail to link because it doesn't have a definition. Yes, that is what happened. Okay, so that makes sense. Because from the previous lesson, I don't know, does this apply here? I guess this is the one definition rule instead, actually. I guess I didn't write any notes about. Or is it in the questions at the bottom? Yeah, so then yeah, so it's kind of like, I guess this is a okay explanation. Yeah, so although we have the declaration here, we never get a definition. So you're not going to have a compiler error because, like this one. This one is a compiler error because it doesn't find a declaration, let alone well, no, they do have the definition, but like it's going to stop here because there's never been a add with 3 ints declared before this is called here. So that's going to be compiler error. This is going to be linker because there is a declaration but no definition. So similarly, you'll have an, I'm curious, can I do this? Oh, I can. Cool. Yeah, so you have the declaration but no definition because you didn't include this. Okay, sorry, holy yap, but I thought it was necessary for me to explain that. Okay, moving on. So when a compiler reaches line 5 of the main CPP, doesn't know what identifier add is. Remember, your compiler compiles each file individually. It does not know about the contents of other code files or remember anything it has seen from previously compiled code files. So even though the compiler may have seen the definition of function add previously if it was compiled, okay, it does not remember. Got you. This limited visibility and short memory is intentional for a few reasons. Okay. It allows the source files of a project to be compiled in any order. When we change a source file, only that source file needs to be recompiled. It reduces the possibility of naming conflicts between identifiers in different files. Okay, that makes sense. We'll explore what happens when names do conflict in the next lesson. Okay, looking forward to that. Our options for... Okay, so actually I want to take a note of this, because that is interesting. Okay, so... I'll say like this. What would it be? What is the right word? Like symbols, maybe? Identifiers? It doesn't know. I guess we would just say no. It's not just identifiers or symbols, it's just anything. forgot how to do it. Isn't there a way to... Oh, there's a way to like format it so it can... We'll do this. I'm just gonna do it manually. No, because that'll look stupid. Should I just keep it on one line? I'll just keep it on one line. Okay. Back to it. So yeah, we kind of saw that, so we placed the definition of function add before, yeah, or satisfy the compiler with a for declaration. Yeah, that makes sense. Because as in another file, the reordering option is impossible. Yep, that makes sense. So you have to use a for declaration. So when the compiler is compiling main.cpp, it will know what identifier add is and be satisfied. The linker will connect the function call to add and main CPP to the function definition in add CPP. Using this method, we can give files access to functions that live in another file. Try compiling add CPP and the main.cpp with the for declaration for yourself. If you get a linker error, make sure you've added add.cpp to your project or compilation line properly. Okay, yeah, so that's what we were trying out just now. So, tip: because the compiler compiles each code file individually and then forgets what it has seen, each code file that uses standard cout or standard cin needs to include IOStream. In the above example, if add.cpp had used std.cout or std.cin, it would have needed to include IOStream. That makes sense. So inside, when an identifier is used in an expression, the identifier must be connected to its definition. When an identifier is used in an expression, the identifier must be connected to its definition. So, what does it mean to connect to its definition? That means it needs to have previously seen. No. Identifiers. Oh, it's saying that it must be connected to its definition at link time? Or maybe? So if the compiler has neither a forward declaration nor a definition for the identifier in the file being compiled, it will error at that point where the identifier is used. That makes sense. Otherwise, a definition exists. If a definition exists in the same file, the compiler will connect the use of the identifier to its definition. Yeah, that makes sense. Otherwise, if a definition exists in a different file and is visible to the linker will connect the use of the identifier to its definition. Otherwise, the linker will issue an error indicating that it couldn't find a definition for the identifier. Okay. That makes sense. So, I'm going to write a brief note for these. So, because the compiler each code. And I'm assuming you would never want to do something like, I'm assuming you don't ever want to like include IOStream into a header file. So then like what happens if you do that? So, okay, what if you were to can you do this? And then so then you were to do We're doing some nefarious things over here. What is going to happen? So, okay, let's try with this, because this is probably not going to work. Right, so... And if we do... Does that work? No. Why doesn't that work? Okay, because it still needs... That still works. Why do we not have to... Why do we not have to add the header file into this? So... Okay, no. We don't have to add the header file because this isn't at the compiler link step. This is at like the what? When do stage does right. So this is at the pre-processing stage. So you have the header file, and that literally just it's just a copy and paste. So we're literally just copy and pasting include IOStream and then the function prototype here, and then it sees those, and then it can also but then also this has been included twice, hasn't it? No, that's fine, because it does need to be included. This is getting like weird. So it's separate, so you should include this in both. Do you need to... You don't really need to include the header in here, do you? So like if you just instead did and you could just do this, right? Yeah. I mean, obviously you have to include, because IOStream was like in the header file, which was like a silly thing to do, so that's why you had to include it. But like if you just obviously just don't do that. Oh, this is... Oh, wait. I need to... So why do you have to... include header? header files in dg++ command. Oh, you don't have to include them. Okay. So you don't include header files. You just okay, but here's the thing, right? You have to do, so no, I don't need to. So it's not going to be able to find this anymore, I bet. So can you do, is this a thing? It works. But I guess you wouldn't want to have to know the path. You would just want it to, you really probably wouldn't want to have to include the whole path there, so you would have to do something like how to change, how to include search paths in G++ for header files. So we do G++ I temp, and then we do there we go. Cool. Okay. I'm done with that header file. I don't need that. Okay. I don't even know what to take away from that whole debacle. I'm just gonna write a little thing. So, because I'm gonna have to fix the formatting of these notes, but because there's no memory between each file that gets compiled, you have to include You have to include what's the word for it? Like identifier maybe. Each time you use an identifier, so that isn't like a perfect definition because you can have identifiers that are not functions, but that kind of gets the thought across. And then this second key insight is important too, so let's see, neither a for declaration nor a definition in the file being compiled if an identifier is used in an expression in a file being compiled and it hasn't seen its declare or a forward, or no, if it hasn't seen its definition or a like forward declaration is a better way to put it. So how do you insert it like that? That's just dumb. Okay, declaration or forward declaration or its definition. You will have a compiler error. Is that not? There we go. Otherwise, if a definition exists in the same file, the compiler will connect the use. Okay, yeah. It's will connect the use of the identifier to its definition. And then if it is in a different file, the linker will in the same file if it has been defined in a different file, the linker will connect the identifier to its definition. Otherwise, if the identifier, no, if the definition is not found in the current file and it's not found during the compile stage, nor is it found in another file during the link stage, called the link stage, then the linker will issue an error. Okay. So, something went wrong. There are plenty of things that can go wrong. There are plenty of things that can go wrong the first time you try to work with multiple files. If you tried the above example and ran into an error, check the following. If you get an error about add not being defined in main, you'll probably forgot the for declaration. If you get a linker error about add not being defined, for example, that thing, most likely reason is that add CPP is not added to your project correctly. In the compile, you should see that the compiler lists both main CPP and add CPP. Only you see add CPP and then add. Only you see main CPP then add CPP. It definitely isn't getting compiled. But usually in Visual Studio, you should see add.cpp listed in the Solution Explorer project pane on the left or right side of your IDE. If you don't, right-click on your project, add the file, then try compiling again. If you're compiling on the command line, don't forget to include both main.cpp and add.cpp in your compile command. Yes, that makes sense. If you added CPP to the wrong project, so it's possible that the file is set to not compile a link. Do not include add CPP. While doing so compiles in this case, including .cpp files increases the risk of naming conflicts and other unanticipated consequences, especially as programs get larger and more complex. We will discuss include further in lesson 210, Introduction to the Preprocessor. Cool. Summary. C++ is designed so that each source file can be compiled independently with no knowledge of what is in other files. Therefore, the order in which the files are actually compiled should not be relevant. We will begin working with multiple files a lot once we get into object-oriented programming. So now is a good a time as any to make sure you understand how to add and compile multiple file projects. Reminder, when you create a new code file, you will need, oh man, I can't read it now. You will need to add it to your project so that it gets compiled. Yes, that is true. Questions. Question time. How did I format the question in the last one? I used it as section. Yeah, that's fine. That was only one question. We'll do GQ. I thought that would fix it. GQ down. Oh, is it GQQ? I thought it was GQ down. What does GQJ do? Formats the current line and the line below it. Oh, is that all it is? Okay, that's how you do it. So I'm curious though, can you... What? Can't believe it does that. That's so cool. Should I... Wait, so GQAP. What'd that do? I don't think that worked though. No, I don't think that worked. Did it work? No, it didn't work. But I guess it's not good to do this if you're gonna be like you shouldn't format it like that if you're gonna put it on like GitHub or something, because it should format it automatically. Okay, so in order to turn it into two files, we'll do so we need to include IOStream in both. Actually, let's do how should we do this? Leave this the same as it is. And we'll say answer. I don't know actually. that's how you would do it. And then you just do we'll just make files for it just to demonstrate. Oh, right, so I guess you would also have to do well, you just do like you do a for declaration for it. So you just do it up here, I guess. And then get integer is, no, you can't do that. Integer, and then it's just an int. Integer, and then we'll go back to here. So g++ main.cpp get integer.cpp main. And then it did not work. Undefined reference to get integer, and that was when we hit. Okay, so that was in main.cpp. And then get integer. It's defined there. Why didn't that work? So int get integer main Why isn't that working? We have the prototype there, and then we define it here. We include both the files. Why is it not working? Did I type it in wrong? Oh wait, no, but isn't this is like the global scope? So shouldn't that just work? And like even Vim knows what it is. Like I can do get definition for that, but I still can't. I am going crazy. Why isn't it working? Yeah, I'm doing that. I have the forward declaration. So, okay, no, it's the forward declaration's fine because it's seeing it and it the compiler sees the forward declaration, this is fine, so it's failing at the link stage. So it for some reason doesn't find. Are these spelled the same? Yes. Am I having like a... Maybe I have to move... We'll do... This is wild to me. I don't get it. No. Wait, what? I am going insane. Oh my god. I'm going crazy. Nah, because this is exactly what I did. This is insane. Yeah, I did that. Bro, oh my god. Oh. It's not. What the fuck? happened? Oh, did I lose it? Am I going crazy right now? Oh my god. Okay, hold on. Just so this one's gone. Then this one is gone. Wait, no. I shouldn't have done that. Okay, hold on. Okay, it's okay. What? What even happened? I don't even know what happened.